fine.
So who does the buck stop with?
It stops with the Minister of Sports.
And what is he doing about it?
Because as he had up.
Did you listen to the Hot Breakfast this morning? Here's what you missed.
Let's talk about politics. Exactly 1 year ago, September 13th, 2022, President William Samoei Arap Ruto was inaugurated as Kenya's fifth president. And 1 year later, what is the report card? What are the hits and the misses? Joining us live in the studio, guest who just does not fear. He doesn't fear
or favor.
Yes, he calls it like he sees it. Karibu Senator Cherargei is in there. Karibu sana, Senator.
Asante.
How are you?
It's good to see you again,
It's
guys.
been a while.
It's been like 2 years,
Yeah.
Leo umetukumbuka?
No, it's you, mmenikumbuka. I think last time I was here, we were in trenches.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now you're out of the trenches.
Yes.
So,
serving this nation.
Serving the nation.
Yes.
1 year later, there's been lots of hits and lots of misses. But for you, and I know you'll be biased when you talk about this, but it's okay. What grade would you give Kenya Kwanza after year one?
I think A+.
So that's like slightly above 100%.
Yeah, of course. You know why?
Why aren't we surprised?
Because we are charging, we are assessing something that should be done within 5 years with 1 year. And I think the President William Ruto has done tremendously well, considering that he took over when the economy was not stable. But at least now, as we talk, the economy is stable.
Define stable. I mean, the dollar was 108 when
108.
Yeah, but now it's 150.
But the fact that the economy has not gone to recession is important, because there are many factors that he has put in place, considering that all the world is recovering from post-COVID. Everywhere across.
We can't be using COVID.
I'm saying
next
because
to tell us the Ukraine war is another factor.
Of course, you have had Ukraine war also is a source of many other issues across the world. But the point I just wanted to make is that the fact that the country did not go on recession, the fact that there are many measures, the issue of subsidies being reorganized, and also giving farmers, like where I come from, is majorly 90% of my people are farmers, and therefore the issue of subsidized fertilizer, where it was 7,000 is now 2,500. I want to assure the country that we are looking at 60 million bags of maize, and therefore the cost of living significantly, because when you look at the expenses of a family, 80% goes to food. So if you find that the production by farmers is quite high in terms of milk, in terms of maize and other food that is stable for the country, I'm sure the ugali eaters across the country that the prices will a bit come down. But that one does not mean we'll sell our maize at the throwaway prices.
But Senator, wasn't that maize supposed to be free? I mean, not the maize, the fertilizer. Wasn't it supposed to be free?
No, those are just pedestrian statements that I've had senior leaders in this country make somewhere in Kisii over the weekend, which is very unfortunate, because you must give evidence. As far as I know, the government had to put interventions. You remember, Jeff, when the government was doing nothing about giving interventions, people are also complaining. But the government, when they intervene again, it becomes a huge problem. So I think the president has done very well. You can know the financial autonomy to the police, so that they allow independence of the police, so that many people are saying police were being misused or abused. The end to extrajudicial killings, that is a very significant, especially to the young people in the slums where hazy cops and others were being killed. And you remember when I was the JLAC chair, we investigated extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances. Number 3 is the CBC reforms, where now at least there's a presidential working party. You remember when CBC came into place, parents were complaining that they were too much expected for them. Your child was given to do math, and then they instruct that the parent should do the math and assist. When the child fails, they think the parent has failed. Some were demanding that you take chicken or unga chapati.
A lot of people just taking advantage of the loopholes in the explanation of CBC.
Yes.
Let me take you back. You've said, there's a fertilizer and all these things.
Yes.
But what are we doing to stop the importation of what we can grow here? Because every year you'll hear, maize is being imported, sugar is coming in. But we've got and also getting rid of the middleman, because the middleman is what's taking away.
Yes.
Why can we have situations where you get your maize, take it directly to NCPB, it's weighed, you're written for a bill, you invoice, you're paid directly. Then these middlemen can get themselves something else to do, like getting into farming themselves.
I agree with you, Nick, that one of the challenges is ensure sustainability. And the only way is to ensure farmer get the production becomes cheaper.
Yes.
And that is why we were saying it is better to subsidize production over consumption. Because consumption, if you put today unga subsidy, it is not long term. But if you're a farmer in Ahero, in Nandi, in Kiambu, to produce cheaply, it means there is sustainability, just what Malawi did, the late Bingu Mutarika did, by ensuring that there is food security in the country. Number one. Number two is also ensuring that the raw materials we use by setup of fertilizer plants in the in the country, so that we can produce some of this fertilizer. It becomes cheaper in terms of raw material. Another intervention that the government, and I think we are putting in place, is to ensure we try and modernize the farming methods by ensuring that we have extension officers to dairy farmers, to any other farmer, coffee, the guarantee minimum return. So I agree with you that we should look at the possibility of stopping what we can produce. And I'm happy you saw omena has been for the first time exported to China, and you saw the tons that were being delivered. So we should be looking in an aspect of exporting instead of importing, because it creates an unfair balance of trade. And therefore, farmers, in all essence, we must be deliberate in importation. I think another final factor is that we need to encourage young people to go to farming, because the average age of a farmer is 55 years. So when you're trying to bring modernization, mechanization of farming, it continues to be a challenge in terms of production, so that we can get more, produce more, until we are able to export the excess to other countries. But I think what we need to appreciate is that farming in this country continues to be very expensive, because even animal feeds, you can see the eggs that is produced in Uganda is cheaper than what is produced in Kenya. Even by the time you bring an egg from Uganda to Nairobi, is still cheaper as more than the farmer who produces here in Kiambu. So animal feeds, chicken feeds, those interventions, I agree. If we can put in place the necessary intervention, as a country, we can do much more as opposed as to importation. And therefore I agree with you, it is in the interest, and you had even the president has been pushing this to ensure even the shoes that we wear and other things. Why should we go and slaughter here in Dakoreti, and then we have skins, animal skins, and we cannot process into belts, into shoes, into good things? And you know, when I went to Brazil sometimes back, they pride themselves in the skin products. They have very nice things. I normally see you wearing a country like Jeff, the country like Kofia.
Yes.
So and they have good quality.
Yes. Senator, I don't see you wearing a counter suit. You're wearing Armani or some, designer.
No. I have not reached that level. The brand you are mentioning. But of course we wear once in a while. It is the brand. President also likes to dress nicely, and I think he has set a standard on what we should wear. But going into the future, as part of loyalty, we shall be donning counter suits down, like the way you see in China and North Korea. But the thing I just wanted in this 1 year that the president has done is, apart from CBC, stabilization of economy, the issue of farmers intervention, even the Hustler Fund. I've had somebody equating Hustler Fund as a Ponzi scheme. It is not. I wish some of these people would go to the village, to those chamas, where you are getting at the Shylock. You take 1,000 from Shylock, but within 1 month they want you to pay 1,500. But the government is giving a better interest rates that even banks cannot give out. Without even collateral security, what you need is only your phone, and you're able to access your own based on your credit worthiness. If you are borrowing 1,000, you can still borrow 3,000, 5,000, and you can grow the business. And I think, and even the government did launch the SACCO, the CBOs, community-based organization. I know there are many young people in slum areas and many other in the villages that they can access this Hustler Fund. That was a privilege of your face, your network, but now it has just been reduced. And I think those are significant things that President William Ruto has done. The unity of the country, as we talk, at least the national security. I know there have been challenges in northern Kenya and Lamu, but the president has really tried to stabilize the national security.
Okay, if you're giving Kenya Kwanza A+, Senator,
yes,
in today's Nation, page 4 of the Daily Nation,
yes,
poll, most Kenyans believe the country is on the wrong track. 53% of Kenyans think the country is on the wrong track. And you're giving Kenya Kwanza an A+.
No, but you know, the persons who don't do those opinion polls are calling for track. It is the same people who believe William Ruto will never be the president. So they have never given us a scientific basis on how they come up with those opinion polls. If it is the same people,
you want them to give you a scientific basis.
Yeah, of course, they need to give us scientific basis.
So you
what is the population? Population sample? You cannot sample 10 people against 43.5 million Kenyans. What we are saying, this info tract, with all due respect, is that they never believe William Ruto will be the president. So I will not be surprised they never believe that Kenya Kwanza will win an election. And we know who the owners are. I don't want to embarrass them by naming them. But these are already biased. Because, by the way, I was surprised because I saw Citizen News yesterday that they were saying 53 believe that the country is on the wrong direction. But 55 believe William Ruto is doing a good job.
Correct.
But I thought William Ruto is the country because he's the president. So why are you even giving us basic conflicting opinion poll? Because if you are saying the president is at 55 doing very well, but you are saying the country at 53% is going on the wrong direction, who is fooling who? And therefore, I wouldn't give much credence to the discussion of opinion polls.
Okay, yes. Remember on the day of the inauguration,
yes,
the president said, Safari,
nikiweka Biblia chini,
yes,
bei ya unga itashuka. Kila mtu atakuwa na furaha, hata Jeff and Nick watanisifu kila siku.
But tumesema mambo ni matatu.
Mambo ni matatu.
I know where you are coming is about corruption, if I'm guessing right.
Yes.
And I think the language that the corrupt individuals in this country understand is simple. It is only three things: a jailer, safiri mbinguni, ama wame. And I think that the corrupt have taken this country hostage. And I'm surprised by our colleagues in the minority side. And I've had a conversation with them on the floor of the Senate, that you are saying the president was not committed in the fight against corruption. He has shown the goodwill. He has even called out rogue judiciary and corrupt officials who are gatekeepers of corrupting judiciary. He has called out that we must fight corruption in the entire country. And he has made a language that only will scare away the cartels and the corrupt in this country. So the point is, the president said, if you are corrupt, you must go to jail. If you are corrupt,
how many people have been jailed?
That is why now the process, Nick, as a lawyer, will tell you, it takes a process. You know, and you know, white collar crime, and Jeff here has had a privilege of living in the first world, unlike others who are living in developing and third world. He knows when systems work seamlessly, it is easy. And you know, investigating a white collar crime, they will tell you ESCC and this is not as easy as investigating a chicken thief. Because when you're investigating, and I'm the vice chairperson of county public accounts where we audit reports, and sometimes to investigate something you might take time. So the question now is that the DPP, which is independent by the constitution, the courts, which is judiciary, which are independent, the police, which have immune financial autonomy and they have the power of investigations, because some of these investigations involve even forensic audit, special audit, among other aspects. So what the president is doing is that he has shown political goodwill. Because if he had not made that statement, somebody somewhere would have imagined that the government or the president is not committed against the fight against corruption. So from where I sit, I think the president is doing very well. And this, by the way, if you realize President Kibaki in 2002, where some of us were still a bit thoughtless, had made a commitment that the zero tolerance against corruption. It is the same statement that the president has said, mambo ni matatu. Because if you see zero tolerance against corruption is only mambo ni matatu. So I think what we need, and by the way, corruption only is not in national government, it's also in counties. And as a senator, being the protector of devolution and oversight in counties, there are many counties also still being bogged down by the issue of corruption. My county itself, Nandi, among other counties, you still find we have devolved corruption. And that is why we have created 47 millionaires who use impressed, who use fake and incompleted projects across counties. There is no value, and that is why when you go to mashinani, ni ngumu kupata ma youth who have directly gotten support from the county governments, because apparently there are many counties that thrive in corruption. And I think the president was right. We want now to see action. And I believe now with the appointment of new TPP, the Inspector General of Police, the DCI, the EACC, we need now to see more of the fight against corruption. And it's not about jailing people only. It's also, you must do what we call preventive measures. How do you ensure that people comply with Public Finance Management Act? How do you ensure people comply with the law? By the way, Jeff, the problem in this country, and Nick, is that it is a budgeted corruption. When people know that the government is going to invest in the housing, they budget. And that is the sad reality. And you had the former ambassador, I think was it Reinberg or who said in Kenya, out of the billions and billions, of around 700 billion was being budgeted under the budgeted corruption. And that is why it was important for the president to give political goodwill against the fight against corruption. Because if he had not done that, some raw government officials, and by the way, sometimes the corrupt are people who you don't imagine them to be. And corruption starts with the procurement departments. Because if they know the pricing of buying this tea, for example, is maybe 50 shillings, they will agree with somebody in the procurement that they put it at 20 shillings. The 20 shillings that is at 80 shillings, that the difference of 50 and 20 will be to line the pockets of few individuals. Therefore, I think the president has tried in the fight against corruption. I know this has been very hard, by the way. And slaying this dragon of corruption, 50 years is not easy. It's not easy.
Okay. So now, some of the promises that the president made.
Yes.
For instance, the price of fuel. Which is, we were told it was going to come down because there was a government-to-government deal with the
GG. Yeah.
It didn't work out.
Yes.
Fuel is now at 194.
Correct.
Now haishuki.
Now that it affects everything from school fees to the price of food, imports,
everything.
Then the taxes have come through as well. How is our life getting better?
And then we were told the dollar itashuka paka 120. It's at 150.
You should have seen Jeff smiling when we watched that clip over and over again.
I'm to Georgia too. So what I can say is, on those issues of the fuel, there was what you call a Petroleum Development Levy Fund and the interventions that were being put in place. But Kenyans should understand that fuel, respectfully, Kenya does not produce oil or any of the oil products. And by the way, for OPEC or oil producing countries, these are an exclusive club. They decide, and you remember, Jeff, during COVID and Nick, the OPEC countries, because there was no movement and need of oil and oil lubricants and fuel, they decided to ensure that the production went down so that the pricing of the fuel does not come down during that period because of the demand was very low. So these countries are producing oil. They are the exclusive club. And then number two, the problem, and I think that is why the president has been, and I know you followed African Climate Summit, and he's going to UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. Yeah. If we have fair international financing systems, that is why would Kenya be buying fuel from Saudi Arabia through dollar? Why don't they buy through shilling? And I think that is what the president has been pushing, to ensure countries that are developing are treated equally.
Who's going to sell us in the shilling, Senator? And who's going to treat us equally?
That's why, by the way, you are joining the club of big boys. No, because of big boys and do not agree the way you agree. You are disputing.
So why don't we join BRICS then?
But the point I'm trying to make is that that was happening in South Africa. But the point I'm trying to make is that the president has been pushing for international fair systems, financial system, and therefore that is why now he's pulling Africa. Say that when they go to table, especially in issues of importation and other aspects, they can be able to negotiate even on the currency.
Senator, do you think those people care who we are? Do they care?
And that is why we must make some noise. You had the former president who was deposed, my friend. Somebody has to make some noise. Our friends have to make some noise somewhere. On the issue of fuel, so that I don't lose, I think we should allow, there are many interventions, and that is why we have reintroduced Petroleum Development Levy Fund, to try and cushion. If we are not cushioned, by the way, the fuel would be around 230 shillings. So, and these are the dollar, there are many factors, international markets that affect the issue of fuel. I wish we were producing fuel as a country.
Now that you mentioned that Tula oil, they've been still there for the last 15 years.
But there is nothing that has come out that is commercially viable. I've read a report.
So why are they still there?
No, but you know, these are being given exploration license that they need to tell the country whether it's, you know, these are business interests. And therefore, it has not given to commercial interest and the local subsistence. But I think as a country, we must, that matter has come to the Senate, in the Energy Committee, we must renegotiate on the issue of Tulo oil. Even on the issue of energy, you remember the biggest elephant in the room is independent power producers, IPPs, where Jeff has I'm not saying he has, here in Kiambu, the solar farm. And he decides to sell megawatts in dollars, and you know he's a Kenyan. So he's selling us, and that is the struggle we are facing with IPPs and the high cost of power. And these contracts cannot be changed in the next 10 to 15 years because the clause that said it was not supposed to be reopened or renegotiated, when you renegotiate or terminate, they rush to court. The same courts will give them the awards that will be even costly for the country. So those are challenges that it shows that, and I think it's also about corruption. Because why would I have a solar farm, selling to Kenya Power, I'm a Kenyan, then go and being paid in dollars?
And then you switch off the power at JKIA.
But you know, those are what you call governance issues, corporate governance issues by many institutions of the government. And I have said, even if you saw my tweet, because I tweeted then, that heads must roll.
Correct.
So it is in the line, Minister, to ensure if somebody derelicted on their duty, they must be fired because the buck stops with them. And I cannot negotiate about that because as a country we must have a stable supply of power. I know there are many Kenyans who lost their property. In fact, they should be compensated by Kenya Power. If you read my tweet, I said they must be compensated by Kenya Power if you lost your business, because the law demands that if there should be power outage today in Hot 96, the Kenya Power must notify you in advance.
Yeah.
And the law, in fact, it must be put on a leading daily newspaper across the country.
Unfortunately, not enough heads rolled.
Yes, speaking of heads rolling, you know,
but Kemsa, the heads rolled.
Not Kemsa,
No.
JKIA.
No, I'm just saying, and I saw the minister doing some changes. I hope he's doing it for the better. Because even the KA chair was also fired then. But I hope it is not, because we were being told there was a generator that has been there for 2 years.
Two generators.
And then it was commissioned. So this country, Salal. But the point that
you're saying this country, Salale. You know, in the paper today they had a list of CSs and the performance, and most of them have been rated D.
D. Average is D.
For
the CSs.
For the CSs.
But people who have had D in life have made it. We are serving them.
Are you a D?
No, of course I went to the great school of Kapsabet Boys, where it has produced the great school of African sons and gentlemen of Kapsabet Boys, where it has produced 2 presidents, President Moi and President William.
What grade did you get?
But no, I can't divulge because those are. But I did very well.
Okay.
But we have the problem in life. Yes, it's copyrighted. But what I can say. You know, if I say my great Kenyans will start trolling me in Twitter and many other places. But what I wanted to say, people who have scored D have done well in life. That's why we serve them. If you
but that's at an individual capacity.
Yes.
Now, when you're put in an office like the CS to do things that will benefit...
No, I agree. But by the way, you had the president saying some of the CSs don't understand what happens in their departments.
He knows more than them.
Yes. But you know, I'm cautious by saying let's give them time. You know, we are human.
It's 1 year.
Even Nick, when you hired, and Jeff, when you hired in these media houses, I didn't know you were not experts as you are now.
But they expect us to be
but
good.
You are learning. But I hope the message we are seeing in the Ministry of Sports, the Ministry of the energy sector, the Ministry of others, those measures must be fixed. And that is why, as members of Parliament of Kenya Kwanza, when sometimes we're in parliamentary group meeting, we have already requested the President that ministers must be present in our parliamentary group meeting so that we call them out where we see they have messed up.
Speak about now the Ministry of Sports, now that you started with that.
You know, I came for sports. I didn't know I was coming to comment. I would have prepared my notes. And I will demand that they are being given 2 hours one straight to submit. But now that we are on the topic that I'm passionate about nowadays, because the issue of sports, Jeff, and you and me, and I know many young people are following. I know my critics are following. But I don't appear sporty. But I want to believe that sports is one of the greatest gifts that the God has given us. Number one, there are many messages in sports. And you remember I raised the issue of rugby, the issue of basketball now that has been suspended, the issue of volleyball. You remember Coach Paul Pitok of Malkia Strikers, the top in the country that won in Morocco. They were paying 80,000 to use Kasarani. The issue of football, to Leram Wajana. and you had the coach has not been paid, there is no disclosure of contract. How powerful is FKF that they cannot disclose the contract
and it was
to the ministry?
Of all teams, South Sudan.
South Sudan, where they are recovering.
Hey.
Now, the final one, the issue of Athletics Kenya.
Yeah.
So what the problems that sports faces in this country is, one, corruption. Two, the federations have been run by people who have stayed longer than Mugabe. Number, the federations has been reduced, Nick, into retirement home, where you go and do your career, come back and become the president or the chair of a federation, but you are retired, you are spent force. This is not a retirement home. Federations are supposed, and I want to repeat that, I said in some media houses and I receive a lot of criticism, the issue of management of sports and federations must be run by ex-sportsmen and women. Why would you take, for example, a lawyer like Cherargei, might be a sports enthusiast, to be the chair of FKF? What do I know about football? Apart from kicking the ball from one end to another. I could learn, yes, but the point is there are dynamics. What can as athletics, the issue of Kenya volleyball, the floorball. You are aware the floorball are going to participate, I don't know where in Africa, but they are yet to be paid. You remember the scandal of Athletics Kenya, where when they went to Budapest, Hungary, and people are saying, oh, we did well because we are number one in Africa. But it's only the Golden Girls who gave us the gold. So but the boys did badly. I'm not saying boys are bad, but because they were demotivation. The Ministry of Sports promised them $300. They ended paying them $60. We ask where $240. If you divide by the 57 times 57 member team, is around 27 million, which can do a lot. The issue of even contract of Nike and Ministry of Athletics Kenya, no one has disclosed, and we are getting a lot of kids, including the junior category, where when you go to some of these senior sports officials, they have kept those in their bathrooms and bedrooms, and that is why I've challenged ESCC and DCI that they should investigate some of these issues. The only solution going into the future is let us use the Sports Act, elections. Change go for an election under the Sports Act. You remember during the FKF in 2011, there were over 6,000 teams that were registered to participate. So it was hard to bribe them, because what happens when the FKF elections or any federation, they lock some delegates into room, give them 50,000, you have around 50 million, you become a president of a federation. But now if we were to allow all the registration of sports teams across the country, let them vote, and I'm requesting that in 2011 we use IBC. IBC has a good infrastructure. So if we have to elect the issues of basketball, for example, I saw the basketball. It is being run by one ethnic community, and I don't want to name who they are. It is the basketball is supposed to have been, and people are eating. There are people who have stayed. And by the way, Jeff, as I came to this invitation when you invited me and Nick, I was asking myself, why is it when it becomes to politics, to be a president, to be a governor, Kenyans demand that you stay 2 terms and go home. And there is an age limit. But when it comes to federation, you stay until Jesus comes back. So my concern has been, what is ailing our sports? Because that is what has been troubling my heart and my soul and my mind.
So who does the buck stop with?
It stops with the Minister of Sports.
And what is he doing about it?
Because as he had up, so the issue, the issue...
That was
because what we are doing is that, for example, let me finish something about the elections. That is why we must, when the CS appeared before National Assembly, he told the country and the world that, we can't touch federations. I asked him a question when he came over the mess in football in Senate, and most of your journalists were there, that if you are telling us we can't interfere with federations because we fear sewerage, some people somewhere sitting in Zurich, they don't know how even our dynamics. Why would we give these federations our money? If you are giving governor money, and then when you go to oversight, they don't say to oversight, then why are we giving you our money? The federations are not untouchable. Even the FIFA and other federations across the world, they recognize our laws. And that is why the Constitution and the laws, and we fund them. Number 2 is that you have to realize that the issue of there is no legislative intervention in this country. For example, in even your awards and recognition, I expected the CS to even give Parliament, which I'm doing at the moment because I've taken that as a responsibility, to even say, I'm happy the President did award Faith Kipyegon, I saw we lost one of sports commentators, and my empathies and deepest condolences to, is it called Sean?
Yeah, Sean.
Yes, Cardovillas.
Yes.
And Faith, people like Faith have been awarded. Look at our old man with the RTM M7. When you win gold,
yes.
like Cherargei is my friend,
Cherargei,
because
yes.
we share border here. You get a house, a car. If you are not married, you get a wife and or a husband. So the government must give us a proper award recognition system. You remember when Kenya Rugby was playing, even the Samurais were afraid of Kenyan team.
Yes.
What happened to Kenya Rugby?
Relegated.
They have been relegated that you don't even recognize. Ni kama paka amenyeshewa ama wanasema Simba amenyeshewa. So the problem is in the running and management of sports in this country. So I can tell you, Jeff, because you have had a privilege in conclusion of traveling the world, and like some of us, who the furthest we have traveled is our villages and Nairobi. Is that at least when you travel the world, the Kenya is known with only one thing: sports.
Yeah.
That's why when you say I'm a Kenyan,
Yes.
they ask you run. Because it has branded, and that is why I was asking, why give Brand Kenya money to go somewhere in some New York back street to advertise Kenya? Why don't you just ensure Eliud Kipchoge, for example, or Malkia Strikers, or our Harambee Stars just wear a jersey that says Karibu Kenya hakuna matata.
Yes.
Then we leverage on sports fund. You remember Mo Farah used to train in Tintin?
Yes.
Safa Hassan, this lady?
Correct.
Is training. Those people can come in the country, train in Iten. During the weekend, they go to Masai Mara, they go to Mombasa. Then they bring that interlinking of sports tourism. So what we are failing in this country, and I'm happy by the way you invited me, there is no media house. This is the first time we are having a conversation about sports in the country. Because, and I'm honored, and I'm grateful to the Hot 96 management and the entire RMS, because they have realized we have been having conversation about politics, about agriculture, but now, you know that the advantage people used to steal in sports is because no one was talking about them.
Yeah.
And you know it's hard to quantify. If I pay you allowance as an Harambee Stars player, no, you know, wananchi hawaelewi. They don't understand how sports run. So my belief is that we must do cleanup in sports. I think 1 year for the CS to be in office is enough to have instituted some changes. And we cannot operate. When I ask you about basketball, no, we can't touch the league outside there will call us. We can't touch FKF. FKF is in a mess. And I always believe, Nick, the reason Ministry of Sports and these federations allow chaos and shambles in our federations is because it becomes easy to eat. You know, it is easier to eat when there are chaos. And like when there is structure, and that is why you was even the issue of Talanda Hela, you had even the deputy speaker was calling it Talanda Hewa, because you are launching an app that does not, we don't know, even the people who are removed from office like Talanta Council, no one paid them. Up to now, the issue of award system, you saw they say they gave secondary schools 267 million. And they're saying, I told them, like Andrew Kipet, who has gone to Spain, and the other two gentlemen who has gone, to US training academies, that it was their own personal levels and their talent.
So somebody ate the money.
There must be development systems, that what we call sports academies,
so
that we can grow talent.
So we need the whole place swept, the whole broom.
That is why it is long overdue. And I would have expected the CS to lead the charge in cleaning up our federations.
Should the buck stop with the president? Because the president puts his foot down. You remember like the Moi days when he calls you to his office and says, I want A, B, C, D done by Friday. Things were done. Because you see, you're coming from Narok as a senator. You're talking about it. The CS is saying he can't touch the federations. Obviously, you're not at the same league. And then if the president doesn't intervene, it'll be next year we'll ask the same questions and same questions. With time, we've got a whole generation of spent forces who could have been something else. Because if the sports is running well, we can have so many TV channels just doing sports alone, like the way we have ESPN.
Yes.
And if a sportsman makes his millions out there, he creates more job opportunities. Correct. But now,
and even for young people, more opportunities.
Yes, because we can't all be the representatives or senators or MPs. So who will you champion to make that change? And we will support you.
I am happy that the president is listening. In fact, if you see the award that has been given, it is the initiative of the president.
Yes.
But you know, the president cannot do your job, and that is why he was telling ministers, do your job. That is why, and I'm happy the president has said most of these. In fact, the president even has been very categorical. Because if the president cannot come and clean up your ministry, He has told the CS to clean up the federations.
He has told them,
yes, because they don't add up. let me use let me use a proper English word.
Yes.
It depends on you who taught you English.
Yes.
Now the point is the point I'm trying to make, Nick, and I want and Jeff and our listeners that are following this conversation, the sports enthusiasts, the sportsmen and women, that the president is committed in cleanup of the sports ministry, and is committed in having a functional and running sports, because it will be beneficial to young people. If the sports by day work, will reduce young people who are just staying in centers, we reduce people who abuse drugs, and many idlers that you see. Because in my county, for example, Nandi, every morning when you wake up at 5 a.m., you get young people running, and they are not night runners.
No,
they are running to train to go and win gold and run for the country. When you work in the evening, you see people volleyballers every center. I wish we could nurture and ensure that we have sports academies in the country. The president has confirmed, and I'm happy in the budget, that this budget and the next one,